belongs to you, but you can't seem to sell? Well, in this episode, we're going to talk about the fundamental questions to ask yourself about why you create so that you can better sell your artwork. Welcome, I'm Stephanie Weaver, artist and founder of the Positive Painters online creative community, coming to you with art business tips so that you can gain focus and action on your art business. This week's episode is brought to you by the Positive Painters online artist community. The Positive Painters community is a place you can grow your art and business with artists who have been in the trenches and know what it takes to grow an art business and create fabulous art. You can join the Positive Painters for less than the cost of a cup of coffee and gain access to a community, monthly art motivations, and so much more. Join today at stephanieweaverartist.com. My first gallery show was in Atlanta at a gallery that I can really no longer think of the name of. It was about 18 years ago, but it was a cool experience. The gallery owner featured 3 female artists, and it was cool because I got to dress up, drink champagne, and I talked very uncomfortably about art. It was the first time that I was asked by someone, quote, "What inspired you to paint this piece?" And just so you kind of have a little context, this piece was one of 3 in a series of paintings that depicted a still life that I set up and painted during different stages of the evening. At the time, I loved painting crystal with lights reflecting with no other light source. They were very dramatic pieces. And well, to his question, quote, "What inspired you to create this piece?" I had no idea how to answer him. I painted it because, frankly, it was pretty and I just wanted to. That was my first thought, but that's not what I said. I made up something kind of on the fly that sounded decent and sounded profound. And that night I actually sold 2 paintings, one of which I didn't actually like, but nobody asked me. The gallery was able to sell it. It was something that stayed with me for years. It wasn't until 2014 that I understood why I painted subjects. So when I first started painting and showing my artwork, I was trying to find something that was marketable rather than finding my marketable voice. What do I mean by that? I focused on what would sell rather than what I actually enjoyed painting. So back in the day, I painted a lot of wine and wine bottles because my thoughts were that, rich people had at-home bars and needed wall decor. So why did I paint this piece? Quote, it had no significant meaning to me, and that was the problem and why I couldn't sell the painting, but galleries could. In 2014, I started painting pets, and I absolutely loved it, and I still do. The first year, I painted over 150 pets, and I just couldn't get enough. In the second year, I slowed myself down a bit because I wanted to ensure that I was providing quality, not quantity. And the other truth of it is I wanted to spend more time with each painting. Sometimes it's really hard to let go of one of the paintings and let it go to its proper home. And I would develop a connection with the dog and cat as I painted them. And this is also one of the reasons why I cannot be a foster pet owner. I have been a foster failure so many times. And I'm pretty sure there's some out there that know what I'm talking about with that. But I just love thinking about the animal stories and seeing the look in the eyes, and it always just brought such joy when I could see the owner reflected in their eyes. So what's interesting to also note is that sometimes buyers have the perception that I painted pets because of the market. So several years ago, I would participate as a vendor at local dog shows, and I'd set up my pet portrait booth and paint dogs live. And I remember hearing passerbyers say, "Well, that must be a lucrative business." Or I'd hear other artists say, "I should start painting pets. Looks like she's doing a good job with it." Well, let me tell you artists out there right now, yes, pet portraits are good subjects to paint for business. But if you are not inwardly driven to paint 30 pets in 30 days, then you are not driven by this passion. And you'll end up where you are right now, which is in a job, instead of what you're actually passionate about. You need to find your passion, and that is your reason why. Your why cannot be a lie. People will spot you and know it. Your why may be hard to express, but you have to express it so that you and your artwork are relatable. When you ask me about my why, and I paint military dogs, contract working dogs, or why I paint cats, or why I teach oil painting and coach my fellow artists, my why is something I am so passionate about and driven that I will be in tears with sheer joy of just being able to talk about it and getting to make a difference in people's lives. So that's a little bit about why it's so important to know your why. Now, the next question was why do people want to know your why? Sometimes it's hard to get past this because we think that our art should stand on its own merit, but that's not always the case. Nowadays, more and more artists are selling art online. So your client or potential client has to get to know, like, and trust you. You are not an established gallery that has been on the street corner for 30 years, which has its advantages and disadvantages, but that's a discussion for another day. The potential buyer has no idea what makes you tick, why you put cobalt teal in artwork, or why you dream in color, or why you paint what you dream, or how you gain inspiration. But when you start speaking to that, then you and your artwork becomes accessible and relatable. I have one more little story and then I'll get right into the questions. Okay, so a couple years ago, I found the power of just talking about a piece of artwork in front of a networking group. The artwork itself was just a plain paper box with a pretty red ribbon and some berries with garland. It was a little Christmas present. It was a 6x6 oil painting on a panel, and I called it Every Day is a Gift. It looks like a simple subject, but when I spoke to the group about several of the paintings and just saying what the inspiration was and why I chose to paint it and what the colors meant to me, there was a lady that said everything for her just stopped. Even just talking about this right now kind of brings tears to my eyes. So, my voice cracked. Sorry, guys. But the lady, she said everything stopped because she had battled for years with chronic pain and heard me talking about the brown paper and how it was dull and lifeless. But sometimes when the mood is right, we can dress it up and it becomes a gift. And this is the attitude that we must have with our lives. Every day is a gift. She came up to me after, and y'all, I kid you not, after she explained why she was drawn to it. We were both in tears, and she bought it on the spot. So that's why you have to have a why. Express your why, and it cannot be a lie. I sound a little Dr. Seussy there, but it's true. You express your why, and it cannot be a lie. All right, so let's just dive into the questions to ask yourself to determine why you painted a particular piece. And I've included a link in the show notes to art journaling pages so you can further dive into why you create that particular piece of artwork and even journal while you're creating that piece. So finding your why sounds simple, but it's totally not. It's like Shrek. There are many layers, and sometimes when you start peeling back the layers, there are some parts that will make you cry. But you can get through it, because when you do, you'll find the heart of what drives you to create that piece, and that will become your selling point. Okay, so some good questions to ask yourself are, what do you love about that subject? And the next one is kind of more of a storyline. If the subject in this painting were to be a central character or feature of a story, what would its story be? And then, what inspired you to paint this? What do you want to convey with this painting? How do you want the viewer to feel? Where do you want the viewer to focus? And then you relay those key points into a story that is relatable and that you will eventually find relates to you, because it's your story that you're building into that painting. Okay, imagine this. You've put together a still life of lilies that are hit with sunlight on a bright red tablecloth. What would the story be behind the lilies in your life? What do they make you feel? What do the delicate flowers say to you? That is tapping into the emotional aspect of the painting. And remember this phrase, in addition to knowing your why, and it cannot be a lie, remember this phrase, logic tells, emotion sells. Logic is the pieces of 6x6. The emotion is your story and how it makes you and the buyer feel. So let's just wrap this up. Let me ask you, as an artist, have you ever bought a piece of another artist's work because of the way it made you feel? Art that makes the buyer feel is worth more than any color matching piece that you can buy from one of those big box stores. And the most rewarding part of this business is when someone truly expresses their love of your art and the voice that you gave it. It is time for you to start expressing your voice with every piece. Go to the show notes and download the art journaling pages today to lay the foundation of what you have to say about your artwork to help you better market your art. I'm Stephanie Weaver, fine art artist, and I look forward to chatting again with you next week with more art business tips. Feel free to post questions or topics you'd like me to consider in upcoming episodes. Until next time, stay safe, happy, and healthy,